Good morning, my name's Tim. I'm here today to give the reflection on today's Moravian reading. Today we step outside from the normal reading through the New Testament that we do throughout the rest of the week, and we look at some other scriptures that are part of the reading. And one of the scriptures today is an absolute banger. It's a worldie. It's Lamentations 3 verse 22 to 33. And in the same way that people may not be familiar with the Beatles, but they certainly know how to hum Hey Jude, people may not be familiar with the Bible, but they've certainly heard of this scripture, or one of the verses within this scripture, which is found in verses 22 and 24 of chapter 3 of Lamentations. Because of the Lord's great love, we're not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Those of us who've been to school will have sung that hymn at school assemblies, maybe at church, maybe at weddings. It's one of those hymns that pretty much everyone probably has trickling through their mind when they read this scripture. And as with a lot of very familiar scriptures, it really pays to look at the other verses around it and have another think about what that scripture is actually saying. God's faithfulness is new every morning, and it's a constant source of encouragement to know that when things are tough. And that's the overall theme of Lamentations. They're written by someone who's going through one of the toughest times of his nation's history, one of the toughest times of his life, seeing the destruction and downfall of everything that he, Jeremiah, believed would last forever, seeing the abandonment of his nation of God and by God, and just the brokenheartedness that he feels in that situation. He says that, and he then goes on to say, the Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for a man to bear the yoke while he is young. Let him sit alone in silence, for the Lord has laid it on him. Let him bury his face in the dust. There may yet be hope. Let him offer his cheek to the one who would strike him, and let him be filled with disgrace. For men are not cast off by the Lord forever, and though he brings grief, he will show compassion. And that's the bit I really want to focus on in reflection today. So this man, Jeremiah, is going through horrendous times, and his response is actually to say, it is actually good to find things tough. There is something that's positive about going through affliction, and that cuts against everything that I have been brought up to believe and everything that our culture would say. Now, I'm a Gen X slacker. When I was brought up, the sort of word was, don't worry, relax, chill out. You know, Han Solo was our hero. Don't take anything too seriously. Don't be too upset about things. And then the generation before me, it was all about keeping a stiff upper lip. And those kind of principles we carry with us throughout our lives, that when bad things happen, we can either ignore it or we try and explain it away. What this scripture says is something really radical, really different, which is embrace it. Embrace the times that are difficult. Goodness knows with this pandemic, a lot of us have faced some dreadful things. And the Bible's actually saying, don't step away from it. Don't try and explain it away, but sit in it and embrace it. And that's a really important thing for our mental health, to be honest. And it's a really important thing for our spiritual health. So why would sadness be good? Why would actually embracing grief be a positive thing? Well, there are lots of really good reasons. I'm just going to go through some of them. Actually embracing grief, embracing sadness allows us to empathise with others who will be going through similar situations, but it also allows us to empathise with God. For God's heart is often described as being broken by what he sees in the world. And when our hearts are broken, we can empathise more closely with God when his heart is broken, and we can empathise more clearly with others around us who are going through difficult times. I also think that when we go through a period of sadness, it actually leads us to kindness. It leads us to one of those great spiritual fruits of understanding that everybody is going through a tough time, and we need to be generous and thoughtful towards them. And finally, I think one of the most important reasons is it allows us to hear God in a new way. When I've been going through grief, when I've been going through tough times, those are often the times when I get the most precious and wonderful moment with God, where I really feel he enters into what I'm struggling with and shows me his compassion and shows me his faithfulness, shows me that I'm not being cast off, shows me that he his love is greater than I could possibly imagine. His love is not extended to me just when I'm feeling chipper and cheerful. His love is extended to me when I'm finding things difficult too. Now, I'm sure that there may be people listening to this reflection who are going through the really tough times, who are bearing the yoke, who are sitting alone in silence. I just want to say, first of all, you're not alone. And though there may be silence, you are not alone. And my prayer for you, if you are finding things difficult, is that you would know the compassion and love of God today. And if you perhaps know somebody who is sitting alone in silence, I also pray that you would know how to relate to them in a way that encourages them and builds them up. So today's reflection isn't about how amazing life can be. It's a lot about how you can hear God when life is not the same. And that's when scriptures like this go beyond just being wonderful phrases that we sing in a hymn and actually become something that means a lot more to us. My prayer for you is that today you'd know the compassion of God, whatever you're up to and wherever you are. Thank you.